All right, let's dive right into one of the most pivotal moments in Indian history, the Carnatic Wars. Now, these weren't just some regional squabbles. Oh no. This was the series of events that literally laid the groundwork for the British Empire in India. We're going to explore how a business rivalry over stuff like textiles and spices exploded into a full-blown fight for an entire subcontinent. So, that brings us to the big question, the one you really need to wrap your head around. How on earth did a few conflicts in the Carnatic region, what we pretty much call Tamil Nadu today, end up setting the stage for 200 years of British rule? The answer to this is absolutely key to understanding the real origins of the British Raj. To get how this all happened, we've got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. You see, the Carnatic Wars didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They were the result of two massive historical forces colliding right in the middle of the 18th century. It was, you could say, the perfect storm.
So think about it like this. Over in India, the mighty Mughal Empire was crumbling. This created a huge power vacuum, and all the local rulers, the Nawabs, the Nizams, started scrambling for power. Meanwhile, all the way over in Europe, Britain and France were locked in this epic global rivalry. They were fighting for everything, everywhere, and for them, India was just another battleground in that much larger war.
But history isn't just about these big abstract forces. It's about people. It's about individuals with their own ambitions and rivalries. So let's meet the main players on the ground, whose actions really lit the fuse in the Carnatic. First up, we've got the French Governor-General, Joseph-Francois Dupleix. This guy was a real strategic genius. He was one of the first to realize that, hey, getting involved in the local politics here, that could be a total game changer. He figured that by backing one Indian ruler against another, the French could expand their own power and even grab some territory. And who was standing in Dupleix's way? Well, that would be Robert Clive. Now, Clive started out as just a writer, a clerk for the British East India Company. But it became very clear very fast that he was a brilliant and, frankly, ruthless military commander. Clive was the guy who would lead the British charge against the French, and he was shockingly good at it.
Of course, none of this could have happened without the Indian rulers themselves. You have figures like Anwaruddin, Chanda Sahib, and Muhammad Ali all fighting for control of the Carnatic. They looked at the Europeans with their modern armies and thought, maybe they can be my secret weapon. So they invited them in for support. It was a huge gamble that, as we'll see, did not pay off for them. They ended up becoming pawns in a much, much bigger game.
Okay, so we've met the players, we know the stakes. Let's get into the play-by-play. The conflict unfolded across 3 separate wars, and understanding how one led to the next is crucial for seeing how the balance of power tilted so dramatically. The first Carnatic War, honestly, was mostly just a spillover from a war happening back in Europe. It kind of ended in a draw. But the second Carnatic War, now that's where things get really interesting. This was a proxy war with the British and French backing different local claimants. And this is where Clive's daring siege of Arcot completely changed the game. Finally, the third Carnatic War was the knockout blow. It was part of the global 7 Years' War, and the decisive British win at the Battle of Wandiwash basically ended French hopes in India for good. I know all of these names and alliances can get a little complicated, but during that critical second war, it was actually pretty straightforward. You had the French, under Dupleix, backing their guy, Chanda Sahib. So naturally, the British backed his rivals, first Anwaruddin and then his son Muhammad Ali. This whole setup was the perfect chessboard for the Europeans to slowly increase their own power. Okay, let's switch gears. For all of you studying for exams, listen up. This next part is for you. We're going to do a quick rundown of the absolute must-know high-yield facts. If you're going to memorize anything, make it this stuff. First things first, the treaties. This is a classic exam question, so get this straight. The first war ended with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, and the third war, the final one, was wrapped up by the Treaty of Paris. Don't get them mixed up, it's a key detail. So let's just recap the absolute essentials. You've got the Siege of Arcot, that was Clive's masterstroke. The Battle of Wandiwash, the final nail in the coffin for the French. The 2 main men, Dupleix for the French, Clive for the British. And those 2 treaties we just mentioned. These are the 6 non-negotiable takeaways. And hey, if you need a simple way to lock this in your brain, just remember the mnemonic CAP. C for Clive, the guy who made it happen. A for Arcot, the turning point battle. And P for the Paris Treaty, which sealed the deal. CAP. It connects the man, the moment, and the final outcome. All right, so we've covered the what. We know what happened. But now we get to the much more interesting question, the one you'll really need for your mains. Why? Why did the British come out on top? What was their edge? Let's get into the analysis.
When you break it down, the British victory came down to a few fundamental advantages. First, their navy was way better, which meant they controlled the seas and the all-important supply lines. Their company was also on much better financial footing. And crucially, they gave commanders like Clive the freedom to make bold moves. The French, on the other hand, their company was micromanaged by the government back in Paris, which led to a ton of political interference. And in what was just a massive blunder, they actually recalled Dupleix, their best strategist, right in the middle of the fight.
So you can see this clear progression, like a set of dominoes falling. It all starts with them intervening in local politics. That intervention leads to the militarization of these trading companies. From there, British military and naval power allows them to dominate their rivals. And the final incredible step, the East India Company transforms from just a business into a real territorial power. 200. Just let that number sink in for a second. 200 years. That is the incredible legacy of the Carnatic Wars. The British victory wasn't just about beating the French. It was the starting pistol for an era of British domination in India that would last for 2 centuries. The foundations of the Raj were poured right here. So if you take away just one single thing from all of this, let it be this. The Carnatic Wars were the exact moment when the British East India Company's mindset fundamentally shifted. They stopped thinking just about profits and trade and started thinking about land, about political control, about power. This was the moment a trading company truly started to think and act like an empire.